interesting. I went and looked at a house to buy this week because now I'm uber rich. No. But I decided to go look at a house and stop paying rent and actually do something with my money. So I started looking at a house.
Oh, wait, it's bullshit. You're not doing. You just give your money instead of giving it to the landlord. You give it to fucking SunTrust. It's the stupidest fucking. I pay my mortgage.
Well,
out of X, 10% or 5%.
The key is being aggressive at paying it off. That way, with no penalty involved.
But then you got to pay for fucking.
My mic just went limp.
Yes, it did.
It was
But
like,
then you got to pay for daycare and health insurance and all that bullshit. There's no aggressive adding to the mortgage.
Well,
that.
yeah, that's why you just got to make more
I've
money.
gotten so used to those guys just taking care of everything. It went limp, and I was like, oh my god, someone come help me.
I need a producer.
Yeah. So, anyways, I went and looked, and I started looking at what I was looking at this one house in particular. My wife is begging me to put an offer in on it, and I was looking at just the property taxes for the city and the county. I'd be paying $8,000 a year in taxes. That means that's like an extra $300 or $400. Yeah. No, that's more than $400 a month on just taxes.
It's like $750
on top of
at least.
Oh, yeah.
On top of, so I'm gonna be paying X amount of dollars in rent, and then I'm gonna be doubling that with taxes.
Yeah, no, a nice house in the city. It's your tax bill is like $500 a month, $600, $700 a month. It's like just in taxes.
Yeah, I think
So
part
it's
of
a
the
waste.
problem. I think part of the problem too is that the houses are being appraised by the county, by the government, way up here, and you're only purchasing it for this much. So I can afford a house that's this much, but the government comes in and appraises it at $100,000 more dollars than what I'm paying for it. So now I'm having to pay like big boy taxes for a little boy mortgage. You know what I mean?
Oh man.
But you can, you can get your tax
My mic keeps going
appraisal
nuts on
lowered. You can get your taxes
Oh,
lowered.
I've heard that.
Yeah, I mean, like if you really liked a house and you're getting it way cheaper than the tax appraisal,
Right.
you can get it down.
Okay.
Yeah,
Keeps
yeah, I
falling
know.
over.
We do it.
Chris is the expert on the topic.
You just
I-
gotta
That's
blow
what
the
you
county.
do for a living, right?
I know real estate. I do
Yeah.
know.
You just gotta blow the county commissioner.
I've heard that helps.
That could help. All right.
Let's do
Let's
it.
kick this thing off. Barbell Shrug. I'm Mike Bledsoe with Chris Moore, Doug Larson. We're here to interview Chris Wark. So welcome.
Thank
to the
you.
show.
Special guest.
Chris has a very interesting story. He was diagnosed with colon cancer a while back as a young guy.
Young fella.
And he addressed it in a very interesting way. And so I want to talk about that.
I guess we
Yeah.
can talk about it.
So,
I guess it's interesting.
I'm sure you talk about it all the time.
I do.
So I'm sure you've got a whole spiel down already and stuff like that. So kind of tell us how you got diagnosed and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I was hoping we were going to talk about Nasscar actually, but I guess not.
Sorry.
All right. Well,
I don't think our listeners
My
are going to
best
be much
friends are
interested in
female.
that.
oh come on.
I watched a movie about NASCAR. It's an IMAX movie they put out. I made fun of NASCAR religiously, but you watch this movie and you get a real true appreciation for the sport.
For NASCAR.
So I had one day
I don't
where I
believe you.
sat on a Saturday. I'm like, I'm gonna watch this. I got till about lap 6 or something. I was pieced out. Tell you what though, I did go to Burger King and I got the Tony Stewart number 6 combo with double bacon or something. Terrific.
Checkered flag.
Pastured beef on that burger.
You know, I'm not sure.
All right, I guess I'll tell my story. So when I was 26 years old, I was having abdominal pain, and it started probably around the beginning of the year, and I put it off because I thought maybe it was an ulcer, and I thought maybe it would go away on its own. Typical male attitude about pain. And so I ignored it most of the year, and it progressively got worse and worse. And then kind of all came to a head right around November of that year, and well, it was a weird pain because what was happening is it would come and go. So, for example, I'd get up feeling good, have breakfast, go to work, working throughout the morning, have lunch. Mid-afternoon, I might get like this twinge of a weird pain, kind of like, oh, what is that, But then it would be gone. Work the rest of the day, go home, eat dinner. After dinner, I'd kind of get another little weird pain here and there.
So in your mind, this could be gas pain or something.
Yeah, it was, it was like, oh, what is that? That's, I didn't feel like anything I'd felt before.
You're making me really paranoid.
Okay,
Man,
well,
now I'm like, oh man,
I know.
I heard all the time.
every little pain
Do
you
you
get,
think my
like,
bloody stool is a problem?
it might be, yes.
I get it every day at noon.
So then I go to bed, and the next morning I wake up feeling good again. So it was like I'd kind of worry about it a little bit, and then I go to bed, wake up the next morning, I'm like, oh yeah, okay, maybe I'm fine, and then I'd feel a couple pains that day, and then go to bed. So it was sort of like Groundhog Day, right? Every day,
Right.
same thing. But the pain did progressively get worse over the course of that year, and then finally it was, after dinner every night, man, I'd be balled up on the couch, just like, man, like something is wrong. So went to the doctor. They did x-rays, couldn't find anything. Blood work was pretty normal. My red blood cell count was a little bit low, but nothing like off the charts weird. So they sent me to a gastroenterologist. He did a colonoscopy and an endoscopy, which is, where the colonoscopy, they go up the back, and the endoscope, they go down from the top. Hopefully it's not the same scope. But I was actually unconscious. Yeah, I don't know.
It reminds me of Idiocracy.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It could have been the same scope. But so they found a tumor, golf ball sized tumor in my large intestine, like right where it meets the small intestine, right by my appendix. And they said, look, you got a tumor, so we need to get you in surgery, get the tumor out. And
What's your response right then when you hear that news? I just watched the movie 50-50.
Oh, yeah.
Great movie. There's that scene where they capture his response to the doctor throws out the word cancer, and all of a sudden it fades into distorted video and distress, and he sort of zones out, and you can see sort of the thoughts would go through your mind when you hear, dear Mr. Bledsoe, you have cancer XYZ. Holy shit.
Yeah, it wasn't.
Is it too surreal to even register? Like, holy shit, I have cancer.
Well, it is because I'd been unconscious for the procedure, and then I was coming out of it, and I wasn't even fully like conscious when they told my wife and I.
Okay, so you had the colonoscopy.
Yeah.
And they drugged you, and then when you woke up, that's when they presented you the news, and you were still kind of like.
I'm like in this little waiting room, and they came in, and he told my wife that there was a tumor, and I remember she started crying, and the nurse was comforting her, and I was just kind of like, what?
What's so sad?
Happening? Yeah, I was like, I was just kind of like, tumor? What? This doesn't make sense. I was just out of it, but didn't take long after I sobered up for it to really kind of hit me, and it was, it's very surreal. And when you get that kind of a diagnosis, you're just like, really, I'm the cancer guy now? Like, wow. I just couldn't imagine like this is what my life's going to be like at 26.
Right.
Cancer
So at that
guy.
point, was there any risk of death, or was that what was going through your mind? I hear cancer, I automatically think I'm gonna fucking die.
Yeah.
I'm too pretty to die.
Well, we didn't know enough at that moment to know. All we know is it's. Actually, I'm sorry. We knew it was a tumor immediately because he told us. Then he said, we did a biopsy. We're going to send it to the lab to see if it's cancerous. So a few days later, I get the phone call. It's cancer, right? Mm-hmm. So the tumor was freaky enough, and then of course, it's cancer. That's like another blow. They scheduled me for surgery. Basically as quickly as they could. They kind of just rushed me into the system. We got to get it out. You got this tumor. You got to get it out right away. So they rushed me into surgery. I had surgery on New Year's Eve, and they took out a third of my large intestine, which, it was supposed to be laparoscopic, where they make some tiny incisions and put the cameras in and just a little tool and do it, and you have like 2 or 3 tiny scars. Mm-hmm. But when the surgeon put the camera in and started looking around, he was like, man, this doesn't look good. We got to cut him open. So they cut me open and found that the tumor had spread to some lymph nodes, right? So they took out the tumor, took out a third of my large intestine, and took out a bunch of lymph nodes. Sewed me back up, brought me back in the room, told my family and my wife and everybody, and I was just unconscious and like split open and all sewn up, and so I don't remember when exactly I found out that it was stage 3, but that's what it was.
So if they do
3 out of 3,
3 out of 4.
3 out of 4. Okay.
So if they take out part of your intestine, are you out of commission for eating for a while?
For a few days, yeah. I was in the hospital for 3 or 4 days, and just recovering. I'd say the craziest experience I've ever had was when they brought me in after surgery, and they woke me up, and I was on the stretcher, gurney, whatever they call it, And they're like, okay, we got to get you into this bed. And I was like, okay. And I just like instinctively just kind of went to move myself, and immediately had this like wave of fear come over me because it felt like my guts were just gonna explode out.
Oh, wow.
I mean, like, you know, when your stomach
Evisceration.
no, I mean it's been cut all the way through your muscles, you know, and it was just stitched up, and I made the tiniest movement, and it was like, you know, like just this.
It felt like it was
panic,
just
like I could seriously
Got
just
that feeling
bust out.
you got diarrhea, so you shouldn't cough. But instead of diarrhea, it's your body exploding.
That's right.
It can't be good.
Trying to relate to the audience.
Your bowels.
Something you've experienced.
Yes, bowel explosion.
We've
So
all
anyway,
been diarrheal.
that's the hardest thing I've ever had to do. I mean, I think was just moving from that, you know, whatever stretcher, gurney or whatever to the bed. I mean, it was like just took everything I had, and there were people helping me and stuff, and I was just like, you know.
Wow.
You think they'd have a better system for that?
Man,
Hey, why
they
don't you move after we cut you open?
Yeah, like we can like ratchet you up on a little thing and slide
They need
you over.
they need a monolift for surgery.
There was no monolift. No, yeah, it was just like kind of roll and push and.
For the audience, a monolift is a hydraulic apparatus used to raise and lower a barbell during competition or training. Not everybody knows what a monolift is.
According to Webster's dictionary.
Well, I was hoping they'd get.
Don't you all know that?
So
I feel like they could have like slid something in under you. Like when I dislocated my hip, I was on my side, hips out, totally out, and they basically just slid in a stretcher from both sides, connected it under me, picked me up, and took me away.
yeah.
That
I know,
shit,
right?
shit, yeah.
I don't know why they didn't do that, but you're totally
It's
right.
like exactly. Exactly.
I've seen them do that on TV shows.
They don't fucking ER all the time.
So yeah, I didn't eat for a couple days in there, and then finally they brought the first meal they brought me in the hospital. The first meal after removing a third of my large intestine, haven't eaten in 3 days. The first meal.
You want us to guess?
Yeah,
Beefaroni.
that's a great guess, but
SpaghettiOs.
I'm going with hospital jello, excuse me.
For dessert, yeah.
And
they like it.
beef stroganoff.
it was a sloppy Joe. It was a sloppy Joe with some kind of like vegetable. I don't know.
You gotta
what it
love
was.
those registered dietitians working in your hospital.
Yeah.
Good job.
Yeah.
Got to nurse this guy back to health.
Gross.
Yeah, they brought me the sloppy Joe, and I'm like,
And people wonder why I don't have any respect for some of these people.
yeah. So I'm looking at it going,
So wait, whose
sloppy
decision really is
Joe?
that though?
Huh?
Whose decision is it?
It wasn't my decision. They didn't bring me a menu.
Right? Is it the dietitians?
Yes, they have the hospital hires registered dietitians.
Sloppy Joe.
This is a good one.
This is what trips me out is the hospitals hire dietitians because they have this deep understanding of nutrition, right? And they're supposed to be giving people food that can heal up, right?
Don't get me wrong. That sloppy Joes are fucking delicious.
I've known some people,
but just not the first thing I think of when I have my gut ripped open.
Yeah.
I've known people who've gone to school for that, and that's where they interned, and they were under other dietitians and stuff like that. So,
Sloppy
and
Joe Academy.
Some of the people that were in that program, I'm like, I hope they're not nursing me back to health if anything ever happens to me.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that, you know, I mean, immediately just when they brought that out, I was like, this really? This is like, should I be eating this? This is like, it seems like I need something better than this. I don't know what it was, but I figured like this is probably the worst thing I could eat.
This was before you self-educated.
I didn't. I mean, I knew a little bit about nutrition. I worked at Wild Oats before it was Whole Foods, and I've been into kind of healthy stuff. But
Original gangster.
yeah. So anyway, I ate some of it. I was so hungry. I ate some of it, and then I couldn't eat anymore. I was like, ugh. And then what they do is they wait for you to actually have a bowel movement. If you have a bowel movement, then they know, like, oh, it worked. Like, everything's connected properly, right? So
how do they check for leaks?
Yeah, I'd be so
seriously.
paranoid about shit getting into my body cavity.
Yeah, I know, man. I know. But anyway, it didn't. And
Yay.
they so this story could get really long, but to condense it, they that was the gist of the hospital stay, and they said, look, you got stage 3. The next step is a year of chemotherapy, and they brought this oncologist in while I was in the hospital. Like, this is the oncologist you're gonna be working with, and it's like, here's his hi, how are you? When you get a little bit better, you'll go and go to his clinic. I'm like, oh, okay, I guess.
So that was the recommended course of treatment for
stage 3
care for stage 3.
Yeah. Yep. So I just was like, all right. I mean, I didn't know what else to do.
You hear it your whole life. Well, obviously you get cancer. You have to do chemotherapy.
Yeah.
This is what you do, right? That's the assumption.
That's what you do. That's what most people do. And so I didn't really question it at the time. I just was like shrugging my shoulders going, okay, I guess that's what I'm going to do. Went home, recovered, sobered up. I had about 6 weeks before I had to make, I don't know if it was when the chemo would start or actually when my first appointment with the oncologist was. I had about a 6-week period there, 4 to 6 weeks to recover. So, I was just at home, like laying on the couch. My buddy of mine brought me the first season of Reno 911. He was like, "Oh, here you go, man. Put it on." And I watched 5 minutes of it, and I had to turn it off. I was laughing so hard, and it just killed. I was like, they're like, "Oh my, I can't laugh. I want to laugh real bad, but like I
shit
can't
yourself
laugh."
on the inside.
Terrible idea is like your stomach's been cut open. Here's comedy.
Here's some laughs.
Here's a little
laugh yourself back to health.
Yeah, he meant well, but
Okay.
but anyway, so what? Immediately, like during that period, there were two. Like I was reminded of two verses in the Bible that really, really hit home with me. The first one was, speaking of hitting, that was a mic fail. The first one was that God works all things for the good of those who love Him and are called according to His purpose, right? And I'm like, well, yeah, I don't know why this is happening, but I know just from a position of faith, I know God's going to work it for my good. I don't know how, I don't know what's going to happen, but I believe it. And then the other one was, the righteous man may suffer many afflictions, but the Lord delivers him from them all. Okay, so those two verses were like, they just came to me, you know what I mean? And I'm like, is that in the Bible? Yeah, okay, it's in there. So my wife and I prayed, maybe about a week or so after I got home from the hospital, we sat down and deliberately prayed about what to do next. I was starting to get this increasing like unrest about chemotherapy, and I didn't know why. I didn't have a peace about it. I didn't feel good in my gut, no pun intended, about it.
See what you did.
I mean, yeah. I mean, everybody knows it's poison. Everyone knows.
Well, I had that thought when I
Right.
watched 50-50. I think it's the second reference. 50-50. I just watched it. Okay, it's right in the front of my brain. Give me a break. But there's a scene where he goes into chemotherapy for the first time, walks through these depressing hallways into the guts of a cancer hospital, sits down with two older gentlemen who are undergoing chemotherapy in lounge chairs with these IVs dripping. And he sits there, he's got this surreal look, and they hook him up, and he just sits there. I go, wow, imagine the mindset of sitting down for chemotherapy, knowing that this is something that's designed to poison you. It poisons almost everything, but it only gets to the point of being deadly for the cancer cells. But everything else gets really fucked up. It's just, it's just a deliberate poisoning of your body, and you have to sit there and endure it.
Yep.
I'm surprised more people don't go, wait a minute, how's this going to be treating me? I'm being poisoned.
Well, I'll tell you why most people don't in a second. I mean, because it's. But I was like, it's poison. Yeah, it's poison. Like I don't know. I don't know that much about health, but at the point I was at in my life, right then, I was like, gosh, the idea of poisoning myself to health, like it doesn't make sense.
This is something I didn't realize until I talked to you, but like I just assumed oncologists would recommend or like have all these options available to them. But after talking to you, they only do radioactive, what is it? Radiation and can't think.
Yeah, they
chemo.
have,
but that's like their only two options.
They have three options.
2 bullets in a chamber.
It's surgery, chemo, and radiation.
Right.
Cut, poison, burn. And that's all they can do. I mean, they are strictly governed by the American Medical Association, which is run by the pharmaceutical industry, right? So it's very tightly controlled.
So anything that's not a drug,
they don't have any
they're
options.
Not going to be given that option. Probably.
Yeah, they don't have any options. So back to the story. My wife and I prayed, and I basically said, God, if there's another way besides chemotherapy, like I just wasn't feeling good about it. I didn't know why. Just open the door if there's another way besides chemotherapy. And 2 days later, on my doorstep arrives a book that was mailed to me from a man in Alaska who I've never met. And still never met him. But he was a friend of my dad's, business acquaintance of my dad's, and he sent me this book called God's Way to Ultimate Health. So I started reading this book, and it was written by a man who had colon cancer, same thing I had. Back in the 70s, he beat it without surgery or chemo using nutrition and natural therapies. So I'm like, well, geez, this is an answer to prayer. I mean, I was, one chapter in, and I'm sitting on the couch, like by myself, like crying, because I knew it was an answer to prayer. So I read the whole book. It was about the raw vegan diet, the anti-cancer diet, basically, and juicing. and just a lot of very specifics about chemotherapy and what it does, and about nutritional therapies and all this kind of stuff. So God's Way to Ultimate Health, good book. So I was convinced after I read it. I was like, this is it. I'm doing it. I prayed the prayer. Here's the book. I'm doing it.
It takes some balls to make the decision.
Yeah, but I just knew. I mean, at that time, it was just so clear to me that it was an easy decision to make. So I told my wife. She was not thrilled about it. She was pretty freaked out because she thought, "What? No, you got to do what the doctor says." My mom, who's always kind of been into health food, was actually very supportive. And turns out she had this giant library. My mom's sort of just an info freak, right? She just reads all the time, just reads and reads and reads, loves books and just reads constantly. She had a freaking library of alternative cancer therapy books. Like every awesome alternative cancer therapy book, she already had it.
Just keeping them to herself.
Just had them, yeah.
Did she mention it to you? Like, oh, I forgot I had all these cancer treatment books.
No, not at all. It's funny. She didn't encourage me to do alternative therapy or natural therapy or anything. I got this book. I made the decision. I called her and told her what I wanted to do because I knew that she would be okay with it. And as time went on, I'd say, hey, have you ever heard of this book? She's like, oh, I've got that book. And I'm like, have you heard of this? Yeah, I've got it. I'm like, what the? Like, she had every book I ever, like,
it sounds like I was an awesome mom.
Yeah, every book I came across in my little journey of, like, research, she already had. So it was, like, pretty awesome.
And she didn't advise you at all during this whole process or, like, make the suggestion to follow the advice of these books? Or?
She didn't. She really didn't. I mean, she just supported me. She's just like really great. She just supported me, and she would say, and like, I guess
that shows a lot of wisdom because most people, like most of your idiot friends, read one book, go, hey man, I read this book, and I really think you should do what I read, even though I didn't really read any other books, but I read this thing, and you should definitely do it.
Yeah,
it's a wise move to sort of show restraint.
Yeah. But at the same time, like to advise somebody who is dealing with something that could potentially kill them, like I don't know how confident I would be. It's like even if I read 100 books, I'm like. Oh, well, if you do this thing, if you're gonna,
put yourself,
because then you're taking responsibility almost.
Well, put yourself.
That guy did what he told me to do, and now I'm dead.
You don't want to steer him wrong.
Well, imagine yourself in a situation where you have big time, heavy hitting news, and then would you want people who think they know what's in your best interest to come up to you and tell you what they think you should be doing, or do you want space to absorb and think about it?
Well, everybody's different.
Were you that kid growing up where if your mom told you to do something, there was no way you were going to do it, and she just knew she would chase you away?
You know what? I wasn't. My dad, yes, I was that way with my dad. But my mom and I had just a different relationship. Like she just wasn't like. She just always kind of accepted me for who I was. Never like really ever criticized me or tried to tell me to do things differently. She just wasn't that kind of a mom. She was just very kind of just let me be who I was going to be. And so she was a tremendous ally during that time. Now, in the meantime, I had a bunch of other family members on my wife's side of the family, and people all trying to intervene and tell me I was crazy.
Careful.
I've told this story plenty of times already. But you're sick.
This is going on the YouTubes.
Yeah, you've got to do what the doctor says, and there's a tremendous amount, and this is answering your question, of family, social, emotional pressure to follow the prescribed path. I mean, it's intense, and that's why people do. Because it's just so ingrained that you have to get on the train, the chemo train, and just do what the doctors say. And and everybody says, oh, if there was natural therapies worked, then they would be using them. That's the argument you hear all the time. But the reality is, no, they don't use them because natural therapies can't be patented and they can't make any money. They don't make any money. The pharmaceutical industry exists to make money. It's a profit. It's a for-profit industry,
right?
And they're not going to research natural therapies. They never will. The only research you see on natural therapies is usually to disprove them, and there'll be very small studies, and they're not going to spend much money on them. But they're not going to spend mega millions to research quercetin and apple skin.
Well, they do the same thing with sports science and supplement. In the supplement industry, is they're not going to spend a lot of money on a single product, Like one of the ones I'm thinking about is D-aspartic acid. It causes your body to produce more testosterone. Mm-hmm. But there's a ton of studies by supplement companies when they throw in a proprietary blend. There's like one study on that one specific deal, and there won't be any more because there's no money to be made.
You can't patent it.
Right.
So that's the short version of why there is not one single natural therapy that's being used in conventional treatments. The only treatments that are used are patented toxic chemical drugs. That's it. There's no natural option. So anyway, despite all the pressure to do chemotherapy, and I finally kind of caved, and agreed to go meet with this oncologist. I was like, okay, I was trying to appease some people in the family.
Yeah.
So I go meet with, I was like, all right, okay, I'll go meet with him. My wife and I go meet with him. We're sitting in the waiting room of the West Clinic. I'm looking around. There's probably 50 or 60 other people. Very nice waiting room. Lots of people. I'm the only person in there that doesn't have gray hair. I'm literally the only person. I mean, I scanned the whole entire room because I was actually looking for any young people in there.
You're about to have no hair.
And there weren't any. All right. It was my wife and I and a bunch of people in their, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. So the TV's on. This is great. The TV's on. It's the Today Show. We're sitting there waiting to get called back. And out comes Jack LaLanne on the Today Show, right? You know who Jack LaLanne is?
Of course.
Yeah, like super fitness guru.
If you don't know, you're not American.
Okay. So fitness guru since like 1940 or something. And he comes out, he's on the Today Show, and he's just going off about, this is why we're sick, because we're eating processed food and it's making us sick, and you got to get back to raw fruits and vegetables and juicing, and this is the way to health.
Fuck this guy, he's wearing shoulder pads.
Yeah. So I look at my wife and I'm like, can you believe this is on right now? Like right now we're sitting here and this is on the TV, like at this moment. It was like,
oh yeah.
So anyway, she's like, yeah, that's kind of weird. Then we go back and talk to the oncologist. He gives me the standard spiel. You've got a 60% chance of living 5 years, which was a complete exaggeration because that is the average survival rate for all cancers, right? Was not colon cancer specific. The colon cancer specific survival rate was much less. It's like 30%. But anyway, he told me the 60% number, maybe because he thought it would give me some hope or whatever. So, but as soon as he said it, I'm like, that's like a coin toss, basically. That's not very encouraging, even 60% chance of living 5 years. It wasn't 60% chance of surviving, just 60% chance of getting from here to the 5-year mark. You may still have cancer in 5 years. Mm-hmm. I asked him what alternative therapies were available, and he said none. There are none. If you don't do chemotherapy, you're insane.
Yeah.
Looked me dead in the eye. My wife said, well, what about the raw food diet? He said, no, you can't do the raw food diet. It'll fight the chemo. So I'm like, dang, that sounds like a pretty good idea, actually. And then he said...
What does that even mean?
I'll tell you what it means.
It'll fight the chemo.
This is what it means. I didn't know what it meant at the time either, but the raw food diet is a very, very hardcore detoxification diet. Mm-hmm. And when you're on raw foods, 100% raw foods, and doing a lot of juicing, your body starts detoxing very rapidly. It's burning through fat, and your body stores toxins in fat. So it's burning through fat, and it's detoxing. So when they put the chemo in, your body kicks it out too fast, and it can't linger and do as much damage as they want it to do. That's why you can't do the raw food diet and chemo.
Right.
Plus, raw foods have bacteria, right? Natural, probiotic, beneficial bacteria because they're not cooked. And that can be very, very dangerous when you're doing chemo because chemo destroys your immune system.
I got you.
And when your immune system is destroyed, your body is very, very susceptible to get all kinds of weird infections and bacterial infections and diseases and problems just from normal soil bacteria that wouldn't affect any of us here. So that's the reason why he said we couldn't do it. Mm-hmm. He said, look, and he could tell. I mean, he sensed that I wasn't real keen on it, and he said, look, I'm not telling this because I need your money. And I'm like, what the? Why would you say that?
Why would you even bring that up?
Yeah, why would you even bring it up? Like that, I wasn't even thinking about that at all. I wasn't thinking like, oh, this guy's giving me a sales pitch. Yeah, but now I am. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute.
Hey, look, business is good. Okay, I don't need you.
It's called. Okay? But here's the thing: I was in sales. It's called the push away, right?
Yeah.
It's a sales tactic. It's
he doesn't need me. I need to get what he's offering.
I don't need your business. Let me just push you away so you'll trust me or whatever. And
I got a Mercedes.
So he basically terrified us. Like we left. He basically convinced us that I was going to die if I didn't do chemo. We walked out of there, sat in the car, held hands, cried and prayed. Like we were just destroyed. I mean, like I had so much confidence going in there, And when I left, I was like this big. You know, I mean, I was completely like, what do I do? He had me convinced that I had to do chemo. But
you were upset because you didn't want to do chemo.
Yeah, I was just upset because I was really afraid. I mean, and that's what they do. They use fear to motivate you to obey, essentially. They use the fear of dying to convince you to do exactly what they want you to do, which is radiation, surgery, chemo, etc. You're going to die if you don't do this. There's no other way. This is what you have to do.
Right.
And so I didn't do chemo, right? I went home, you know, I even though I was afraid, I was more afraid after hearing what he said. I still knew there were confirmations that I knew that God was leading me in the path of healing. Like I knew it. I just knew it. And it's hard to articulate, I mean, or even explain to some people. They just don't understand, but it's like you know it in your knower. You know what I mean? I just knew it. So I'd already converted to the raw food diet before I went to see the guy. I mean, it was 100% all the way. Like
how long have you been on the raw food diet when you went in?
You know, I'm not sure. I think probably a couple weeks.
So you're kind of feeling the effects already?
Yeah, I was feeling great. I was feeling awesome.
So kind of explain what the average day of using the raw food diet is, so we're all on the same page.
I went 100% raw vegan. So immediately I stopped eating all cooked food, all processed food, all, you know, if man made it, don't eat it, right? That's like the Jack LaLanne.
Would that include grains, essentially? Or?
Yeah, it includes, I didn't eat grains. The raw food anti-cancer diet does not include grain. So it's basically raw fruits and vegetables, some seeds and nuts, and a lot of juicing. So the average day for me, for 90 days, I was 100% raw. Excuse me. So what I did was I got up every morning and I juiced about 64 ounces of vegetable juice, carrot, beet, celery, cucumber, a little ginger in there. You know, I'd kind of mix it up. But the basic concoction was carrot, celery, beet.
So I tried juicing for the first time last month, and I made maybe 10 ounces worth.
Yeah.
10 to 12 ounces worth originally. And that would take a whole lot of like vegetables to create 64 ounces.
Yeah, it does. So
you're going with organic.
Yeah.
You're not gonna juice down pesticides.
No, right? It's got to be organic. Yeah, absolutely. You don't want
cure my cancer.
You don't want concentrated doses
but
of pesticides.
There are people doing that, thinking that juicing is good for you.
That's right. They are. But, you know, Whole Foods sells these big bags. It's like a 50-pound bag of organic juicing carrots. It's like this big.
Oh, for real?
Yeah. And so, I mean, that's what we were buying. Mm-hmm. And then we were buying all kinds of other stuff, too. So I'd get up and spend about an hour juicing enough juice for the whole day. So I drank about 64 ounces of juice every day.
How many juicers did you go through doing that?
None. One. I still have it. The Champion Juicer. I've had it for 8 years.
You didn't have a Juice Tiger?
Huh?
Juice Tiger is the way to go.
What?
It's the Jack LaLanne's machine.
That's the Juice Man, actually.
Well, okay. My whole world has been rocked.
So yeah, it's. I bought this. You know, it's like $250 juicer. It's like got a commercial motor in it, whatever. So I just went for it all the way. So I juiced all the juice in the morning. Mid morning, I'd eat like a piece of fruit, but I would just basically just drink juice throughout the morning. For lunch, I'd have a giant salad. I mean, just broccoli, cauliflower, spinach, kale, red onions, red peppers, green peppers. I mean, pretty much mushrooms. Every vegetable that I could chop up and fit in a big bowl, I would eat that.
No dressing.
I actually went on your website and made that.
Yeah. Okay.
After I discovered you actually had a website, I'm gonna make that. My wife and I made it, and it was actually really good.
Made the salad. So I made a dressing that was extra virgin olive oil, apple cider vinegar, right? So it's basically oil and vinegar, and then I would put garlic, red pepper, cayenne pepper, Italian seasoning, and curry powder. So it was like this real kind of like zesty, kind of spicy oil and vinegar. And it's awesome. I mean, it's so good. So anyway, giant salad for lunch. And then in the afternoon, I'd make the coconut fruit smoothie. I'd take a whole coconut, cut it up, put it in a blender, and then get...
Gosh, what a pain in the ass that is.
Yeah, I'm gotten pretty good at it, though. 2 cups of frozen berries and a frozen banana, and then drink that in the afternoon. And then at dinner, another giant salad. So that was it every day for 90 days.
If I get trapped on a tropical island, I want you to be with me.
Well, if we have a blender, that'll come in handy.
That seems like a lot of... Is that not too much fruit? God, that's so much more fruit than I first ate.
It's 3 cups of fruit, but when you mix fruit with a fat, it actually slows the absorption. And so what they found is that 9 servings of fruits or vegetables per day is like a really, really optimal amount. I mean, you can really see significant health transformative effects if you consume 9 servings every day.
You keep that up now? 9 servings?
Yeah, a serving, pretty close to it. A serving, it would be like a cup, right? A cup of anything.
Fruit
kale,
or vegetables.
Yeah, fruit, vegetables, kale, anything. So I was having way more than 9 servings, though. I mean, my salad was almost 9 servings. So I was getting like 9 servings in the salad. Then the coconut fruit smoothie was another 4 servings of fruit, not counting the coconut, and then another salad at dinner. So, I mean, I was pushing about 20 servings of fruits and vegetables every day. Okay. So, I mean, I was trying to OD on nutrition. That was my strategy, right? I'm just going to pump as much raw nutrients into my body, and to the point of, I just want to give my body as much as it can possibly take, more than it needs, so that I'm not missing anything.
Do you think that if you were to do that with just vegetables, not fruit, you could get, I would think that you could get more nutrition, less sugar that way.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Probably.
It'd be just tough to get the calories.
Yeah, the coconut fruit smoothie helped me a lot with the calories. And plus, it's just like, I kind of have a sweet tooth, and that really satisfies the kind of like sweet craving that I would have in the afternoon, just having that smoothie. It's just, and I drink it every day now. I mean, I still drink it every day.
So you're talking about maximizing nutrition. You're definitely maximizing your vitamin, mineral, antioxidant, phytochemical, nutrient density.
Yes.
But was there any protein in there almost at all?
There was no protein.
So,
but here's what we did. So after 90 days, I about 30 days into that process, about a month into the process, my mom had, and my mom had all these books and stuff, and occasionally she'd say, hey, there's this one book, or I saw this article you might want to read, or something. She would suggest things here and there. But anyway, so one day she said, hey, there's a naturopath here in Memphis that I've been seeing, I've been going to, and maybe you should go see him. You might like him. And I was like, I don't know. Okay, maybe. I don't know. I didn't know anything about natural medicine or naturopaths or anything. And I just kind of like, well, okay, maybe. A couple days later, a guy from church was like, hey, there's a guy that maybe you should go see, and his name is John Smothers. I'm like, all right, okay, I hear the signals, like, I'll go see him, He doesn't know my mom, like these two totally random people, right?
Right.
The guy from church and my mom, they've never met. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to go see this John Smothers. And I went to see him. First consultation, I said, look, I've got cancer, blah, blah, blah. Here's my story. Here's what I'm doing. He said, great. I know the book. That's exactly what you need to be doing. And I was like, yes, number 2. This is my second ally in the process. Man, I wanted to cry right then, because up to that point, I mean, literally, I didn't have anybody that was telling me, like, you're doing the right thing.
Nobody was backing you up.
Nobody.
Yeah.
My mom supported me. My wife really was still freaked out and very afraid that I was going to just die, And... And so he was the first person that really told me I was doing the right thing. And so I started working with him, and what he did was he analyzed my diet. He let me stay on the raw diet for another about 60 days, so it was like 90 days, give or take a day or so. And then he did blood work. He's very comprehensive. So he looks at your blood, your saliva, your urine, your stool samples, hair analysis. He wants to get a total picture of what's going on in your body. And after we did all these series of tests, he said, look, you need more protein. You need more animal protein. Your body needs it. And I said, okay, I'm fine not eating meat. I felt fine. I was having a hard time keeping weight though. I was real skinny. I'm still skinny,
Right.
but I was a lot skinnier then.
Were there books? Were some of the books that you'd been reading, were they advising against meat for any specific reason?
The generally accepted anti-cancer diet is a raw vegan diet, and there's a lot of books about it. So there's a lot of stuff out there that reinforces that.
My knowledge of physiology and nutrition, I don't really see where like animal protein would come into play. In regard to cancer.
There's a couple theories, and I don't know if they've ever been proven, but the kind of stuff that you read is that, and that I've come to understand is that one, enzymes are critically important in breaking up cancer cells, right? And your body produces proteolytic enzymes that break down protein. When you stop ingesting protein, those proteolytic enzymes actually will turn on your body and start like Pac-Man, right? And they'll start looking for things to digest that shouldn't be there.
Right.
And so that's actually
This is why endurance athletes are very skinny.
that's what'll break down.
Who don't eat much meat. And
That's what breaks down a tumor. When a tumor breaks down, that's proteolytic enzymes in your body actually breaking it down. So that's why taking out meat, and when you eat a lot of meat, your body is producing a lot of enzymes, and they're all devoted to digesting meat.
So it'd probably be a good idea to be, like, if you want to avoid cancer, it might be good to eat a lot of protein, so that if there was any point where you came in, you had cancer, you remove that.
You could quit
your body
eating
would have,
meat and then turn the enzymes loose.
Your body would have tons of enzymes.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if I can endorse that, but
it sounds like
Bledsoe's new anti-cancer diet.
I've got an idea.
But you got to do it before you get cancer.
Yes.
Wait, I've also heard the opposite though from people in a similar situation where they've had cancer and they've done almost the opposite, where they had zero carbohydrates because they were making the claim that all cancer cells are feeding purely on glucose, and if you can starve them of glucose, then they'll wither away and die.
Yes,
I've heard that.
No, that's true. Cancer cells do. Well, there's a lot of different components that the cancer feeds on. It actually also needs iron, right? Mm-hmm. And so the iron in meat, is sort of a no-no, right? That's one of the other reasons that they want you off meat, is because they want to decrease your iron content. And even further than that, they want to, I took quercetin, and quercetin actually is like an iron blocker, and it blocks the absorption of iron. So anyway, there's an iron and cancer connection, right? And heme iron, which is like iron in red meat. So there's that component, and then there's the sugar component. Cancer cells do feed on glucose. Normal cells respirate oxygen, but when a cell, Otto Warburg, who was a Nobel Prize-winning biochemist, in 1938, his research, he basically discovered that cancer cells don't live on oxygen; they live on glucose. That was Otto Warburg. So, what he found is that he could cause a tumor to go from benign to malignant by simply reducing the amount of oxygen that those cells were exposed to by 35%. So a 35% decrease in oxygen to your cells over a certain period of time, they will mutate because they want to survive.
So circulation is good.
Circulation's good, but so
again, just so I'm on the same page as you, benign means that it's not going to spread, and malignant means that it could spread to the rest of your body.
That it's spreading. Yeah, malignant is spreading.
So he's cutting off oxygen, which means that it's more likely to get glucose and convert to the bad cancer or the bad tumor.
Yeah.
So essentially, it's a desperation response.
That's right. Your cells, think about your life force, right? Your cells have life force, and they want to survive. And if you deprive them, cells are either going to mutate or die if they're deprived of essential nutrients, oxygen and other essential nutrients, right? So you deprive healthy cells of 35% of their required oxygen over some period of time, and they'll either mutate or die. If they mutate, they're going to mutate to survive on glucose, which is called glycolysis. And so cancer cells have a lot more glucose receptors than a normal cell. And yes, they feed on sugar. So like the big part of the anti-cancer diet was no carbohydrates, obviously, no processed food, no sugars. Now I did have some fruits, but and there are some hardcore people that won't even eat fruit at all when they're on an anti-cancer diet. Everybody, there's a lot of different little opinions in that world, but I was following the recommendation of a naturopath who said having this fruit smoothie once a day was fine. So he got me back on clean meat. After doing all the tests, looking at my physiology, my anatomy, everything, pretty much about me that he could find out, he said, look, you need some animal protein. So he put me back on clean meat, starting with lamb, wild-caught Alaskan salmon, and then eventually organic free-range chicken. So and
clean meat meaning
they're
organic. looking at you don't want cattle being fed in a bunch of corn.
A feedlot. Corn. Yeah.
Not
first thing I thought was all kosher?
Yeah.
You Jewish?
Any paleo person knows what I'm talking about, but if you don't know anything about clean meat is a meat from an animal that is raised organically, preferably grass-fed, and is not given any growth hormones, steroids, antibiotics, etc. And it's from a conscientious producer, like a local farmer, right? So your local farmer, local farm-raised, farmer's market type meat. So he said, look, you need this. You need a piece of clean meat about 3 times a week. And so I was like, okay, that's what I'll do. So I started eating clean meat again along with the raw food diet. So I went from 100% raw to about 80% raw. and he added a little bit more cooked food to my diet for the calories. So at night with dinner, I'd have the giant salad, but I'd also have like a baked sweet potato, or I'd have some brown rice, or I'd have a piece of meat with it, you know, and the sweet potato. So
on a raw diet, it's really hard to get enough calories to be active.
Yeah, it's difficult. And the thing about the raw vegan diet, it's a very powerful detoxification and healing diet. But I personally don't believe it's sustainable for a long-term lifestyle.
But it reminds me of, if you want to talk anthropology, it's why did humans diverge from other apes? A big reason is a bountiful diet, where if you cooked meat or processed veggies, instead of hanging out underneath the tree and chewing them all day, you had excess calories to grow things like a nervous system that was finally developed and a big fatty brain. You could the cool studies I've written for before is, you know, they discovered this mutation in myosin, jaw muscle of human myosin, that basically allows you to downregulate and reduce the muscle size of the chewing muscles. And if you do that, you allow space for the brain case to expand. You look at the brain case of a gorilla. They have this big spine going down the axis of the skull, and that's where these huge jaw muscles come up and attach to chomp down with enough force to process the green roughage all day long, day in and day out. You grind through heavy tubers or do whatever. But humans can cook meat and can process food, chew it quickly, get it down quickly, don't need big muscles, don't need big muscle attachments. You can devote more resource to brain power, which is a very interesting concept. It jived nicely with the line of conversation.
Yeah, gorillas are also colon fermenters, and that which you know, people say, well, anyone who has the idea that we can live on a plant-based diet alone, you know, they'll say, well, gorillas eat green vegetation all day and they're 400 pounds.
You're not a fucking gorilla.
But there's a big, yeah. But
That's
a lot
the
of
scientific answer for you.
You're right, and but the big one of the big differences is they're colon fermenters. They can break down cellulose in their colon. We cannot.
Kind of like cows.
Yeah, well, cows have 6 stomachs.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, humans can't. You cannot digest cellulose. That's what fiber is, and that's why it passes through.
Yeah.
And that's why juicing and blenderizing vegetables and juicing is such a powerful way to it's basically like medicinal food, right? It's not I mean, our ancestors didn't use blenders or juicers, right? But that's the way that you separate the nutrients from the fiber,
right? Because
just chewing up fruits and vegetables, you get some of the nutrients, but you get a lot more.
You wouldn't be able to digest all of it.
Yeah, if you blend them up or juice them, you get you get about 90% of the nutrients in it. You can extract.
I'll tell you, the key thing to help me up my vegetable content was putting it in smoothies. Like,
yeah,
I'll eat a whole bag of kale from Whole Foods and a whole plastic big container of mixed greens or baby spinach every week because of that. Right. I can't really eat it all. I don't have time to sit around and eat it all. If I can juice up 3 handfuls of spinach and drink it in 10 seconds.
Yeah. All right, guys. Let's take a quick break real quick. We're 45 minutes in. So we'll take a break. You people at home. You people.
Hey, what does that mean, asshole?
Who are you calling you people?
So
who are you calling
you guys people? Are going to get a nice break. I think Chris will probably insert a cool video. So be back in a few minutes.
Probably porn.
Our show's going to be so much better next time because we'll have webcams. All right, there's Mike Bledsoe back with Doug Larson, Chris Wark, and Chris Moore. This is Barbell Shrugged, just in case you missed it on the front end. Subtle. We left off with talking about what clean meats were. The naturopath advised you to
Before you do that,
eat more of that.
We talked earlier about Chris going through the process, deciding upon a treatment, his experience with his surgeon, doctor, about what he recommended, and that struggle. I will point out, for the benefit of the audience, I believe it's Ken Murray, last winter, or late last year, early winter, whatever, published a little article called How Doctors Choose to Die. Some people may have read it. I think I put it on Facebook.
Yeah, that was a really good
But I thought it was fascinating that the recommendations they made to their patients were radically different than the courses of treatment they chose personally.
Right.
And that they recommended routinely these brutal surgeries for really serious conditions and diseases, chemotherapy, everything that is really quite torturous and destructive to these people's lives. But when it came to them facing down pancreatic cancer, for instance, they choose to not go through any of those treatments, to the effect of telling colleagues to promise them not to allow them to go down that path. So if you're interested in that article, I highly recommend you Google it. How Doctors
Did they talk
Choose
about what
to
they
Die.
did instead?
Basically going home,
They would do nothing.
spending time with family, and
Right.
the quality of time they had remaining, they wanted to maximize it. So a year of torture and pain isn't better than 3 months of, slow decay but happiness and dying. So
Yeah, the bucket list, right?
mm-hmm.
No, that's
Food for thought.
It's great. It's totally. It's amazing. And if I could say a couple of things about chemotherapy that I didn't mention earlier, but these played into my reasons not to do it. Everybody knows it's poison, but what they don't know is that chemotherapy, it is poison. It causes secondary cancers, right? It's carcinogenic. So it's a toxic poison that causes secondary cancers, and it destroys your immune system. So what happens almost every single time, and believe me, I know a lot of people with cancer because they contact me from all over the world, and I've had friends and family, of course, that have gone through it, but it's almost always the same story, and I bet most of the people in this room have heard this story. Person gets diagnosed with cancer, they have surgery, they do chemotherapy and radiation or whatever. At some point after the chemotherapy is done, the doctor says, well, there's no evidence of cancer in your body, and everybody's so excited. And then a few months later, they have their next CAT scan or test, and the cancer's back, but now it's in your brain, and it's in your lung, and it's in your feet. It's spread. We don't know what happened.
I've heard that many times.
Yeah,
People go out and celebrate, like, oh, my cancer's gone after doing chemo, and they go out drinking.
They go out partying and stuff. like this is so great. Every time. But the reason
that just shows you the disconnect that probably exists with the majority of the population.
The reason it happened is because their immune systems are destroyed, and chemo has caused secondary cancers, and that's just popping up all over their body now. It's spreading like crazy. Their immune system's decimated and cannot fight it. Even if you have cancer, your immune system is at work. It's trying to contain it. Even if you have a tumor, your immune system is not dead. It may be suppressed, and that's one thing that can lead to cancer, is having a suppressed or overloaded immune system if you're super toxic. But again, that's these aggressive raw food diet and hardcore natural therapies address the whole body, right? They're holistic. It's about detoxifying the body and giving your body all the nutrients it needs to heal itself, because ultimately the body has to heal itself.
So you had surgery, and you told me, that surgeries can actually help to spread cancer throughout other parts of your body. Do you feel like your surgery was beneficial? Are you glad you did it, or do you feel like you could have handled this without surgery?
Yeah, it's a tough question. I feel like surgery was the right thing for me because I feel like God was in control of my situation, and the way I went into surgery, it worked out. Surgery can go one of two ways. It can either kind of give you your body a jump start towards fighting the cancer if you're removing the bulk of it.
Right.
Or it can cause seeding, which can cause the cancer to spread and have negative effects. And so I never tell anybody they should do or not do surgery, because every cancer is a little different when it comes to whether or not you should address it with surgery. So, but having said that, I have met a lot of people that have beaten cancer without surgery. So yeah, it's doable.
Okay.
I mean, the guy who wrote the book I read, that was the first book I read, God's Way to Ultimate Health, he beat colon cancer without surgery.
Yeah, and you don't regret the surgery.
So if you have
No,
like, if
I
you have
don't.
a golf ball sized tumor and you go on a raw foods diet, does that just kind of wither down and eventually it would be gone? Is that something that has happened, or
Yes.
is it just become or stay benign and just isn't a problem anymore?
It's it could be one of either. I mean, I've met a lot of people that have done natural therapies where they just do a hardcore transformative natural approach, and their body takes care of the tumor. It breaks it down, it heals, and it's gone. And then sometimes it doesn't break down the tumor, but the tumor just never grows. It just
becomes benign.
It becomes benign or dormant or whatever. Like Chris Carr. Have you heard of Chris Carr? She's a pretty famous cancer celebrity. She Crazy Sexy Cancer was a documentary about her. She's a couple years older than me, and she had, I think it's pancreatic, but pretty serious cancer. She did the raw vegan diet, and she's been on Oprah and stuff. I mean, she's pretty well known. She has a blog, Crazy Sexy Life or something. But the point is, she still has cancer, but it just won't grow. She's a hardcore raw vegan, and she has been for years. And she just wrote a blog post a few months ago about she just had another test done, and they're like, yeah, the sponsor's still there, but they haven't changed in years. So she's got it controlled.
Right.
So that's one thought I had, was how the approach must change, or whether it should change depending on what your diagnosis is.
Like what
Like,
type of cancer?
Yeah.
If a cancer that could have been caused by nutritional factors is best addressed by correcting that. If you had a tumor or some other condition of the gut that's likely caused by a shitty diet, it makes sense that it's easily treated by correcting your diet. But if you have leukemia or something,
What about skin cancer
Well,
or breast cancer?
melanoma, pancreatic cancer, I'm sure it's just not as easy at that
Well,
point.
it depends on the way you view the human body's ability to heal itself. 80% roughly of all diseases are linked to diet. Okay, so the body, if you support the body, if you feed it the nutrients that it needs to heal itself, then it's capable of healing itself. I mean, if you rip your fingernail out at a CrossFit gym, it'll grow back. You know what I mean? And there it is, right?
Tell them how you rip it.
And I get this question all the time, like, well, what you did, I get emails, and I think I got one today, literally. Well, what you did work for, my father-in-law has esophageal cancer. I think that's how you say it. And I'll say yes, because what I did was not specific to colon cancer. It was specific to the entire body.
Right.
It was like supporting the entire body, overdosing on nutrition, giving my body all the necessary nutrients it needs to heal itself, and taking away all the negative inputs.
I feel like that would apply to like leukemia and stuff like that. That makes sense to me, but the only thing that doesn't make sense to me would be like skin cancer.
Yeah.
Well,
your skin can heal itself.
Yeah, but it's similar.
I do
What's
buy that. It's
causing-
how you get too much sun exposure. You're light skin, you get too much sun exposure, and then you end up with.
But even that seems like horseshit, because I've seen the argument of the evolution prescription that this doctor laid out a case for, if you stay out of the sun, you're much worse off from the lack of vitamin D than you are from any cancer risk.
The skin cancer rates are higher in countries that get less sun than in countries by the equator. So it's really not the sun, it's diet plus the sun. There's a connection there between.
You got a lot of inflammation going on via diet, and then
steady, reasonable exposure to the light to get the adaptation to deal with the sunlight exposure, not just fucking going out and sitting in the sun for 8 hours.
So yeah,
As a ginger, then burning the fuck up.
Yeah.
Hey, I read this article that sunlight was really good for you because of vitamin D and all that shit.
Yeah. No. So I mean,
I look like a fucking blistered lobster.
diet
That's
plays
what
a
people
part
do.
in
They go,
skin cancer. Yeah.
Paleo, and they start fucking buying paleo Oreos. People are dumb. You're never gonna get beyond the fact. You always gotta keep in mind that we're just fancy apes with big fucking adrenal glands. We're always gonna make stupid mistakes. We're smart, we got some things figured out, but we're always you can't shake the indelible mark of where you came from. Just as a little side, ramble. Special guest, continue.
Yes.
So how often does somebody do some type of vegan type diet, and then you've heard about them, just it didn't matter, they basically ended up dying anyway? I mean, I'm sure that has to happen. It's like not everything is treatable.
That's right. That's right. There's a lot more that goes into, cancer is a very weird disease. I mean, it's systemic, but there's a lot of factors that can cause your body to become an environment where cancer could thrive, right? The diet thing is obvious, right? But there's also emotional and spiritual connections, and even stress. Everybody knows that stress is toxic for you, right? I mean, you guys probably studied that in nutritional studies and stuff.
Hans Selye's research.
Okay, so yeah, stress can actually break down your immune system. It can cause your immune system to not function as well. And so anytime your immune system is suppressed, whether it's overloaded from toxins, chemicals in the world, or it's suppressed from stress and negativity, unforgiveness, resentment, bitterness, jealousy, like all those negative emotions actually suppress your immune system. So I'm saying all that to say that there's some people don't have the will to live. And I've talked to those kind of people. And some people do. Some people have the will to live, and they'll fight it, and they'll survive, and they'll thrive. And then some people, when they get a diagnosis of cancer, they just don't have the will to live. And some of them will go through the motions of chemo and radiation, and some of them will go through the motions of natural therapies, but down in their core, like at least the ones that I've talked to and been around, I can tell they're just going through the motions. Like they're just not really fighting to survive, and their mental and emotional and spiritual attitude is just wrong.
You think they probably don't believe what they're doing is actually going to help? They're just like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to do this, whether it be chemo or like a raw vegan diet.
It's
they're
possible.
just kind of like, I don't believe this is going to work, and that actually plays like a huge part.
I think your belief in it's probably a big chunk of the success. It's like with any exercise program or diet program. If you really believe in what you're doing, you have a really good shot at success.
I tell the athletes that all the time. It's like, the best program can sometimes be just the one that you believe in.
Because there's lots of people who do silly shit and still are incredible.
Yeah. Right.
We talk about that a lot in the happiness advantage. Like people who are the most optimistic always recognize tend to have more.
You recognize more opportunities that come your way.
Oh yeah,
people ignore opportunities.
What's that documentary? Can't remember what it was. Is the man. You had to cut this part out. I'm tipping my
undefeated.
Tongue.
Was it about happiness?
OPT actually had the DVD listed on his.
Oh, you're talking about
The Secret?
The Secret.
Yeah. Fuck that.
Yeah, The Secret and
that's where you got to draw a line.
The power. The
if I
power
throw
of
out vibes for a new car into the universe, she will create me
the power of
new car.
attraction. So if you
That's
really
right.
believe it, it'll happen, type of thing. I thought it was really funny that it was on his website. I was like, oh man, this must be.
Look, I love
OPT.
a good Zen
recommends
attitude.
it. I'm gonna watch it. So I Netflixed it.
Mike McGoldrick.
I Netflixed this and I'm watching. I'm like, this is some cheesy stuff. Man.
That's a step beyond healthy spirituality and open attitude and belief in yourself. That's like, if I just wish really hard for something, it'll happen. I think you cross over into delusion pretty quickly. I mean, some restraint.
It gives people
That
hope,
actually
and they don't
might
have to
be
do
a
much
good
work
thing.
to get it.
Well, if you're saying, if Oprah's telling you, if you can dream about what you want to achieve, you will get it. Think about that car you want, and the universe will fucking give it to you.
Well, she does give it to him, so.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I mean, when it comes to, at least with cancer and stuff like that, I mean, yeah, there's the power of belief. There is supernatural and mystical element to your attitude and your belief about, do you believe your body can heal itself? Do you believe your body was designed to heal itself? So there's actually a logical progression of thought that I went through. Like, yes, I believe that God created me and made my body to heal itself, and that he put plants and minerals and nutrients and herbs and all this stuff on the earth to support the healing, mechanisms in my body, right? So those are the fundamental beliefs that I had. So it was like, it all lined up. There weren't any contradictions in my mind. I didn't have any problem believing that, I believe my body can heal itself. I just got to make sure I give it what it needs.
Yeah, that's actually what attracts me to. I actually looked at going to chiropractic school at one point. Was that I know. I'm sorry, Chris.
I love chiropractic.
But what I really liked about those guys whenever I go to see them is that they're more holistic and that they're more concerned about what's going on and in your life and stuff like that. Whereas if you go see a PT and then they're usually really focused on that one little area.
You know what Ripto thinks of PT? He classifies that as silly bullshit. But I had a thought when you explained that, the outlook and everything. It popped in my mind to talk about some advanced scientific ideas about observation and altering what you observe. What's this?
Or how you interpret what you observe?
What's the area of science that's so fucking mysterious in physics?
Physics?
Is it quantum physics? Yeah, so
quantum
I was gonna say the whole subject of physics.
Well, like I'm talking about,
the
power. There's certain things that humans just aren't gonna grasp. I mean, there's just no guarantee that with time we'll figure it all out. I mean, shit is really complicated, and you shouldn't assume that because you're the highest evolved specimen on one planet, you can't assume that that's as high as things can go.
Are you suggesting that there's aliens?
There could be anything. I mean, why would you exclude the possibility? You need to have open attitude about these things. But the idea is that
I bet on other planets,
things are actually
dolphins are the ones in charge.
I mean, things.
I've heard that.
Yeah, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. But if you consider the fact that things are actually really, really fucking beautiful and complex, and we've only just begun to make the faintest of scratches on the body of knowledge that could be discovered. Things like observing an object and altering its course. Like I've talked to Scott English at work, who he likes to have these kind of conversations. Stuff we talked about. 18,000 people are in an arena cheering for the home team, and a guy dribbles on a court, 10 seconds left, and shoots a basket. Did he shoot the shot with perfect form and score the 3-pointer to win the game? Everybody cheers, or did the ball go in the hoop because everybody wanted it to go in the hoop?
Have you watched What the Bleep Do We Know?
Did they will it?
Yeah, I mean,
have you seen?
It sounds a little hokey.
Who here has seen What the Bleep?
But
Do We Know?
there are studies where like people shot electrons at targets and had a certain result.
Well, that's exactly what that.
Yeah.
The documentary was talking about.
If you don't
stuff
fucking
like that.
look at the electrons, other crazy shit happens. It's like there is some evidence that when you just the act of observing and putting an intent on an outcome changes it.
Yeah.
And there's no bias involved. It's just a fucking electron.
Yeah.
So that's kind of shit that cannot be explained readily.
Kind of like when ninjas sneak in your room and you can sense that they're there.
Oh, quit being so silly.
Something he mentioned earlier about that kind of just reminded me of obviously along the lines we're talking about. But there's a big difference that people don't understand, or some of them do, but between an allopathic medicine, which is conventional medicine, and naturopathic medicine. And naturopathic medicine is always about the whole body. It's holistic. They want to improve the functionality of the whole body, support all the systems in the body, the immune system, the central nervous system, the detoxification systems. Like, we want to support the entire body and get it to optimum health so it can heal itself, right? And then allopathic medicine or conventional medicine, they're very focused on the symptom, right? They treat the symptoms.
So what you're saying is that what allopathic
is like
they would be like Keynesian economists, and then the naturopath would be like an Austrian economist.
Maybe so. Yes. Yeah. So but allopathic medicine, you go in with a backache.
Perfect analogy.
Right? You go with a backache, and the allopath says, okay, well, we can give you back surgery, or we can give you these pills, right?
Right.
And that's how we fix your little back pain. And a chiropractor would say, well, your back might be actually out of alignment. Let's try to adjust it first. So that's like the example.
Or Glassman. I don't like a whole lot of everything he says, but Glassman's attitude about you go to the doctor for high cholesterol, and that's like a truck speeding out of control. So you take a hammer and smash the speedometer, and you've fixed the problem.
Yeah. Well, no.
So you take Lipitor. Oh, my high cholesterol is gone. Fuck, I got no problem no more. No, high cholesterol is only a symptom of something deep.
Yeah, that's right. Well, here's a better analogy. When you when you have cancer, if you have a lump or a bump, that's not your problem. The lump or the bump is not the problem, okay? That's a symptom of a systemic problem, right? So cutting out a tumor is not going to fix your problem. Like just having surgery, your body isn't an environment where cancer can thrive. And taking a tumor off is just like you going, you've got a wobbly tire and you go to the tire store and you're like, my tire's wobbling, and they say, oh, we'll just take the tire off.
Or put a new tire on.
No,
Let that fucker
not a new
wobble.
tire.
No,
No,
no tire at all.
or just take the tire. There, it doesn't rattle.
Well,
Or-
I was actually thinking about, you could fix the alignment. I was trying. I know almost nothing about cars, but I was trying to sound like I did.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Their approach is not necessarily fixing the problem. It's just eliminating the symptom. That's the difference. Like, oh, this thing in my engine's rattling. Oh, we'll just take the thing out. There, no more rattle. Right? But it's
you
like,
happy?
wait, but I needed that part.
And by the way, that's going to be
that's very intuitive.
$125,000. That's what like these treatments are going to run you.
Yeah.
I mean, that's very intuitive from the point of view of someone who has no idea what they're talking about, and it's always going to sell better.
Yeah.
So you can't fight against that. There's no way. I'm not saying it's right. I'm saying this from a sales marketing point of view. It's always going to sell better, and it's always going to win.
Mm-hmm.
It's unfortunate, but it's kind of the way it is in the business world.
Just killing the symptom.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Back on the nutrition track. So, how do you eat differently today than you did right when you started the whole raw vegan natural diet?
Well, so the 90 days was raw vegan, 100% raw vegan. For the next 2 years after that, roughly, I was about 80% raw vegan. But he had worked in some clean meats and some grains and sweet potato and a little bit of cooked food. And today I'm not far off of that. I still eat a lot of raw food. I eat clean meat. I drink raw milk. I eat raw pasture-raised eggs. So I eat a little more protein now because I train at a CrossFit gym that you guys own. So, I do have a higher demand now for protein than I did before I was actually training and trying to get stronger. So I eat more protein now than I did, but it's only clean sources.
How much protein are you eating now? Because I know we talked about this a while back, and I was suggesting you eat more.
Yeah,
but I was about to say take more like it's a drug.
Yeah,
but
let me think about how much I eat.
He takes the advice. He goes, "Hey, Blizzo, thanks. I got fucking cancer again."
Yeah,
Protein.
That's
for
where
the
I'm like,
protein advice.
maybe you should try adding 15%.
Yeah. So right now I probably have. On a typical day, I'll have 2 raw eggs, which isn't that much, in a smoothie. So, I'll put them in my coconut fruit smoothie.
By the way, you convinced me to do that. I now do 5 in my smoothie in the morning.
Look at you.
And I like it, yeah.
So, a couple raw eggs. I take either I drink, a few glasses of raw milk per day. Usually with dinner, I'll have a piece of meat. I don't usually eat meat for lunch or breakfast necessarily. And then I'll take some kind of protein supplement powder, either a raw vegan powder. There's a couple that I like. One of them is Sun Warrior, and then the other one is Garden of Life, and then Vega makes a good one. Or I'll take a grass-fed protein powder. It's grass-fed whey protein powder, Defense Nutrition. So, so I don't know how much protein I take. I actually don't monitor it that closely, but so I don't know.
Sounds like you're not getting 100
more
grams a day, probably.
I may not be getting. No, I'm not.
I've always
getting
wondered
100
about
grams a day.
if it's beneficial to go grass-fed for like protein sources. And if you have this processed macronutrient,
I'm not convinced that grass-fed's probably as good for the. I'd be more interested in getting my whey protein from like a raw product versus a pasteurized milk or something like that.
Yeah, I quit.
I think I'm more concerned with that than because usually if a cow is eating grain or not has more to do with if it's got a lot of omega-6 or omega-3 fatty acids. So it has more to do with the actual fatty acids than it is the protein. When you're getting a whey protein, you're just getting the protein.
Yeah, it's like
so I'm not sure.
Distilled product.
And the other thing with that too is it's probably safe to go grass-fed and raw if you can, because there's just stuff we don't know.
I actually quit drinking whey altogether because had these.
We assume that like fat is the issue when it comes to grass-fed versus grain-fed, but there might be some protein stuff going on that we're completely unaware of.
I told you, I got to where I was getting like just a nauseated, sick feeling after drinking whey protein shakes. Like after a year, I'm like, fuck, I just don't think I can do it anymore.
You're drinking shakes with sucralose in them?
It was just a decent quality whey protein. And then I got to where I was like, I just got like fucking like kind of just clammy in the back of the neck, and I was getting detested by the idea of drinking whey protein. When I switched to egg protein powder and it went away, I started enjoying shakes.
I wonder if yeah, and those have.
I'm not allergic to milk. Too. I could drink all the milk in the world and I'm fine, but I just fucking I don't do that.
It just
so
may
maybe
have
I
been.
can't, but
Look, it may have been just intuitive. Just an
I was
intuitive.
like, fuck, I don't want to drink this shit anymore. Let's
Yeah.
quit. And egg protein's been really
Well,
pleasant.
you can.
Egg protein powder's fucking delicious if you get the right kind.
I mean, you can develop allergies to anything.
Yeah,
And
I
a lot of
think-
people
I think
have
I
like
did.
dairy allergies, and you may have just been starting to develop that or something.
Yeah. And one thing I try to do is cut out a lot of dairy. Now I'm trying to drop the weight a little bit. I cut out just about everything.
Yeah, cutting dairy. Pretty much, if I'm trying to gain weight, I eat dairy. If I'm trying to lose weight, I'll cut it out.
No dairy.
The only
Awesome.
thing I
Paleo?
drink, I mean, I'm gonna put heavy cream or half and half of my coffee. And if you tell me, oh, you also need to drop that, I'm like, okay.
Well,
fuck
I wouldn't worry
yourself.
about. I wouldn't worry about
I'm
that.
not. You're not touching my coffee
From,
habits.
from what I've gathered about dairy and gaining weight or losing weight, it has more to do with the protein. It doesn't have to do as much with the sugar or the fat. It has to do with the type of protein has like insulin growth.
Well, I don't need insulin like growth factors. I'm fucking 300 pounds.
You're
Yeah.
right. So,
yeah.
so you're probably eating like less than 100 grams of protein a day, and
Yeah.
so if you wanted to gain weight, I told you a while back you'd probably need to shoot for at least a gram per pound of body weight.
Yeah.
So would a suggestion like that, does that kind of scare you?
Honestly, it doesn't scare me, but I kind of like eating that much it would be a chore for me, and I'm real comfortable with like.
But you're eating 9 cups of veggies for lunch. Right?
No.
That's a
I mean,
fucking chore.
That's
bro.
that's not hard. That's not hard for me.
Oh.
But
Wow.
I mean, but just eating more, like I don't like stuffing myself and like trying to gain weight. It's just not fun.
Well,
And
it's
so-
way. People don't realize it's way harder to gain good quality weight than it is to lose weight.
Oh yeah,
It's
for sure.
way, anybody who's ever tried
Yeah.
to gain weight knows. Oh shit, I don't want to do that.
Most people never had the experience both ways.
It's crazy, man. It's crazy. Eating like 8 meals a day is
Yeah.
just not happy and not conditions for sanity.
It consumes your whole life, and it's
Yeah.
super expensive.
Yeah. So that's
It's your
kind of
entire
why
job.
I kind of have a system where I'm eating more protein, and it's like, in the gym I'm getting stronger, and I've made a lot of gains and stuff in the last year, and I'm happy about it. So I don't know. I'm not against eating more protein.
Actually,
I'm just, it's
on
like
that note,
kind of a chore.
You're kind of in the habit of eating what you eat.
Yeah.
And that's good.
Yeah.
And why change?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna say on that note, if you've ever tried to aggressively lose weight and you have to cut your meals way, way, way down, you have all the time in the world.
It's the easiest thing.
Oh,
in the world.
yeah.
It's the easiest thing
I
in the
only
world to
eat
do.
2-3 times a day.
Anytime I'm trying to get leaner, even if I'm eating as frequently,
Yeah.
I'm not having to sit there and be like, all right, I gotta get another spoonful in me.
Yeah.
It's
Oh
like,
yeah, I mean, I remember that feeling of looking at a plate of tuna and rice or something. When I'm playing football, or whatever, going, I would rather fucking die than finish this rice and meat concoction. I would rather just fucking die right now. That's how you know you are sick of eating.
Yeah. Force feeding yourself. I know, man.
Like every bite, you have to. It comes up and down, up and down. You got to keep and hold it down, and then like shake it off, and then get back into the meal.
Oh, yeah.
That's people just don't understand how hard that is.
my most aggressive.
Think it's great. You can eat whatever you want, whenever you want. It's great. I love to gain weight. No, you just that's complete foolishness.
When my most aggressive time for gaining weight was when I was in the Navy, and we used to just, me and my buddies who were all trying to gain weight together, we'd stack our plates, like trays, and like just make a mountain of food, and we'd eat there. And I've got probably the weakest appetite of anybody, so I'm one of those hard gainers. But I've pretty much narrowed down the fact that I've hung out and lived with people who are not hard gainers. The only difference between me and them is that they eat more. Like people who are hard gainers that think they eat a lot, they don't have the appetite is what it is. So I'm one of those people that don't have the appetite. I have to force it down. So these guys would have to like cheer me on. They'd be done with like their mountain of food, and I'm over there going, I'm dry heaving,
So
like trying to keep it down.
even you now is an interesting contrast to like me. Like I'm always amazed when you tell me what you eat. I'm amazed when you fucking told me what you just eat. Like all these vegetables, fruit. I go, well, I just don't eat anything near that. I have, like,
For those of
3
you
eggs.
listening at home or watching, I'm at 175 pounds, and I think I eat more than Chris Moore does. And he's at
My
300
history.
pounds.
When I powerlifted seriously competitively, I was actually nationally competitive at it. I was about 370 pounds at my peak, and I was able to compete at a high level drug free by upping my body weight a lot. I mean, at the time, my squat was close to 1,000. I was pulling 700 and bench pressing 700 pounds. I had to be very big. So I remember one of the things I did to get there was lots of shakes. And like one thing I did was put like I would go online to a beer brewing supply and get it was I guess maltodextrin powder or something. I would put it in the shakes. Plus banana, protein, heavy cream, all this bullshit. But that I just remember exploding in body weight. I put on like I got through playing football. I was like 285, 290, and then was up almost 100 pounds in like 2 years. So that, but now right now I'm like about 300 pounds, and I might eat 3 to 4 eggs in the morning with a little bit of meat and like a half a grapefruit. I won't eat again until lunch. I'll have a shake with spinach, 2 scoops of protein powder. I'll train, maybe have a shake, maybe won't. For dinner, I'll have meat and veggies, and that's all I eat.
I would starve to death on your diet.
Yeah, but I don't
like
lose that much.
150
I could remain at 300 pounds just fine.
Yeah.
My training volume's not super high, but I train pretty hard,
Right.
3-4 days a week. So.
Yeah, you just
And you tell me stories of eating like a whole jar of almond. Like fucking Christ, a whole jar of almond butter.
with
and a dozen eggs a
And
day,
a
and then
gallon of milk a
package
day.
of bacon, and fucking
Yeah.
a gallon of goat milk. I'm like, what? And I'd be 400 pounds. That's always amazed me every time I hear that. Every time. For me, like I go, well, half a grapefruit. I'm eating way too much fruit. It's crazy.
I'm a hard gainer like you. Yeah. I could eat a ton and it wouldn't.
Seems like the
gain much
appetite's
weight.
not there.
But yeah, I'm just not that hungry. I mean, I eat till
So the
I'm
protein doesn't
satisfied.
scare you. It's just
Yeah, I just eat till I'm satisfied, and it's like I actually did Body for Life when I was in college, the Body for Life challenge.
Bill Phillips.
Yeah, I took
Bill Phillips.
I took the before and after
marketing
pictures.
genius.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
man,
yes,
that
he is.
guy's brilliant. But yeah, I did it, man. I bought all their supplements. I took the thing. I did the 3-month deal, and I put on about 15 pounds of muscle in 3 months. And but it all went away real fast. It was all like artificial supplement gains. It wasn't lasting.
Well,
but
if you wanted to gain muscle
but I
on
was-
his diet or on his program, you had to drink his shakes.
yeah, I was drinking the shakes, but I was, I was eating 8 times a day. It was just like, wasn't fun. It was,
Yeah.
You
I find
give
to
up
get
the
the
essential balance in your life.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to gain weight and stuff like that, you have to make big swings. So, I want to say I'm 175, I want to weigh 185. It's probably best for me to bump to 200, and I'll come back down to like 185.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
but balance is a big deal. That's why I always, I don't know why I thought of steroid use, but I ask people I think about people who do it, and I go, wait, if you're really driven to pursue something at the highest possible levels, and especially in strength sports, or if you're a Major League Baseball player up until like the last 2 years, you're gonna have to do that. Okay, you're just gonna have to do that. No questions asked. Some kind of performance enhancing agent. But what I always question is like, okay, it always represents a gross imbalance in your life, though. I think when you pursue one angle so heavily, I think you have to always keep in mind the wisdom of training and exercise and nutrition, and that if you sacrifice so much of other things to get the one thing, and you overexpose one area of your life, it's just not going to be sustainable. You're not going to be happy in the long term.
Yeah.
You're never going to get fulfillment. If you put 100 pounds on your bench press from taking steroids, you'll feel good for 10 seconds, kind of like buying the new car. And then you're just going to be fucking unhappy with yourself. It's like the reasons behind why you're doing something are terribly, terribly important. Same goes for diet and everything else.
Yeah.
Balance. You're right, man. You said it.
Whenever they do psychology studies on happiness, people tend to be very poor at predicting what would make them happy. Two well-known examples would be if you ask somebody what would make you happier, getting an extra $30,000 a year or taking a 30-minute walk every day. And everyone says, no, I want $30,000. But whenever they do the studies on it, people that take a 30-minute walk every day tend to be happier with that
people,
change than the people that have the $30,000.
One thing that amazes me as you get older is you realize there's all these cliches you hear your whole life. The best one being, money doesn't equal happiness. And you go, yeah, fuck, whatever, dude. And the simplest things in life that are so critical are so hard to grasp and really.
Didn't they basically show that money does equal happiness up to $75,000 a year?
There was a study up to $75,000 per person.
People are really strange.
Year, yeah.
And then it's diminishing returns.
Like, if it pulls you out of poverty, then yes.
People are really strange, and that also, if there's a guy making $500,000 at his job, he's exceptionally happy. If he knows he's making more or the same as people he works with, even if the average income in that area is $50,000 a year. But as soon as he knows his people he work with make $600,000 a year, he's terribly unhappy. Humans are just fucking very predictable like that. It doesn't matter what it is. I just got to be better than you, motherfucker. It's that tribe mentality. But I was also thinking about the issue of cliches and simple knowledge and balance and all that. I read in this little book I was reading. I think the guy's name is Bushido or whatever. It's like The Way of the Samurai. There's a little blurb in there about how the samurai fucking hated people who read too much. Because sometimes they observe...
Einstein was the same way.
They observed people who read too much were shameful because oftentimes they observed that they wouldn't assimilate what they read. They'd fucking read something and learn something and spout it off to somebody else, but didn't display the wisdom of assimilation into their life. It didn't manifest in a changed outlook.
I think it's education without intuition.
No action.
Well, you can tell somebody, oh, money doesn't equal happiness, or X about your diet doesn't equal Z, and they go, yeah.
Well, even if you're putting it to
everybody knows it's not a good idea to eat McDonald's 3 times a day, but they fucking do it. And everybody sees the obesity rates and figures and pictures of bellies waddling across their screens on the nightly news, and they know, yeah, of course, being fat's bad, and that I shouldn't eat McDonald's 3 times a day, and I shouldn't smoke a pack of Marlboro, but they fucking keep doing it.
One expression I like actually is learning is behavior change. I think White Woodsmall came up with that. I'm not sure about that, but basically, if you learn something and you can recite it to somebody, you didn't really learn it. If it changes your behavior on a daily basis, then you really learned it. You assimilated it into your life, and that's how you should define learning something. Yeah,
and the object is not to get more and more information. It's like when people incorporate very, very complex, I'm as guilty as anybody, overly complicated views on training and exercise. Again, more advanced athletes train in a more complicated way. If I train in a complicated way, vis-a-vis, whatever, I'll be fucking advanced. And that's not what works. So what works is understanding just how elegant and perfect a very simple approach to anything is. How fucking hard that is.
10,000 hours to master something.
The Zen attitude. Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication.
Maybe that even applies to training. Like maybe you need to do 10,000 hours worth of squats before you need to make it more complicated.
The cycle
with bands and chains.
The cycle of my experience has been you start off very simple because you know shit. And you go through this cycle of like learning more and more and more, getting more and more complicated. You start realizing, well, I could do things a little different. Sooner or later, you arrive back at square one with all that knowledge, and now you can really get to the good parts, the good gains.
Yeah,
I know. The Black Swan. I don't know if anyone else here's read that book. Anyway,
I don't know if you've read what I've read.
It's because I'm so smart. But
not a samurai.
No, that's a tough book. You might want to go to the Wikipedia page for that fucker. That book's a little dry.
Yeah,
you might want to read the synopsis.
But one thing, he cites some studies in there where he was talking about like people who have more knowledge about something specific, like more knowledge equals like more confusion. Like you're more likely to make a poor decision. Or like the economists that study the economy and who are on the news and all that kind of stuff, they actually have a poor. They actually have
pundits.
The pundits.
They score worse than fucking kids randomly picking shit, right?
Right. So they did a study where they would ask taxi cab drivers in New York, to predict the market, and they were doing that compared to like these economists, and it came to be that you'd have better luck getting your advice from a cab driver in New York than you would from whatever. And he talked about that in relation to doctors as well. He's talking about doctors who had like all this. I forget how the study went on that one, but they were talking how they actually found that. But they were talking about doctors who are specialists are more likely to kill you than they would be to help you.
Yeah, well, think about like
Chris is like, yeah.
well, think about like breast milk. Why is it a good idea to consume breast milk? Well, it's a natural option, and despite our best, I have a 5-month-old at home, Mr. Max. So these issues are always at the forefront. But there's all this stuff in breast milk that we know intuitively is in there. It's good for kids. And it's perfectly designed for this kid to be consuming. And we know our best attempts to replicate breast milk, which is a $35 box of powder that its first ingredient is corn syrup solids. So, and we know, I'm a fan of science. I think we have to entrust in it, keep developing, keep pushing to learn new things. But I know that if we're treating something like cancer, we know all the things that we're trying to throw at it to stop its progression. We'll come up with very fancy analyses and chemical arrays of targeting and understanding what helps and what doesn't. That's all essential. Like the work at St. Jude and everything. This is all incredibly essential. But at the same time, all of the shit that's in a leaf or wild-caught Alaskan salmon, for instance. We know there's a certain amount of things in there. We understand that. We've worked very hard to understand that. But there's all this interaction and very fine detail that is way beyond our current ability to understand. So that elegance and that complexity, we don't understand it, but we know that just consuming it, we get the benefit of it.
Yeah.
So there's that unknown component, that very savvy component. I mean, you consume it, you get the benefit, and then that's so much more effective than our best attempt at solving.
That was actually one of the things to talk about in the Black Swan was, if it works, just do it. If you don't have to understand it, And
people go, oh yeah, we should try it. Well, there's things that people think they understand very well, economics or any
medicine,
even things that we think are very well understood, are actually just so much. I mean, our ignorance doesn't allow us to see all the existing details that will probably go undiscovered for a long time.
Yeah,
that was one of the main points that Michael Pollan made in defense of food. He basically said that we don't even know we don't know, so we don't know what's in there that we don't know about.
Take a moment
if you just
to
eat
think
real
about
raw food, then it'll handle the whole problem.
I mean, take a moment to think about just the history of this one planet. This, from the moment that plant-like cells and animal-like cells emerge from the ocean, populate it, and then go on land. I mean, think of the advanced expanse of history, and the amount of time that organisms battled against each other and battled against pollutants. Plants have absolutely amazing advanced chemical warfare tactics and all that stuff. So, I mean, there's been battles raging on between plants and animals.
Was Bush part of that one?
Bush?
Yeah, the chemical warfare.
Oh, shut the fuck up. But think, absolutely hundreds of millions of years, battles have been raging. Defenses thrown up, offenses attacking those defenses. So there's all these things built into the biochemistry of a plant, for instance, to fight off other offensive agents. Your body, the things that fight off infection in your body, began this practice 100 million years ago in some simpler form. So that's that amount of time to develop very complicated defenses. Way more time and experience than the 500 years of decent science can hope to match. So, I mean, that natural progression of complexity and defense mechanisms, you can take advantage of it just by eating more of it. I mean, I think it's a very, very powerful concept to be aware of.
Well, that's, it's funny because you guys are talking about simplicity, and that's that's basically what my approach was, because I ate the same thing every day. Like I'm the kind of guy where it's like, just show me what works, and I'll just do that every day. And as I researched like the phytonutrients and bioflavonoids and carotenoids and like all these like micronutrients in food, and especially the anti-cancer foods, which the cruciferous family are some of the most powerful anti-cancer vegetables. Brussels sprouts, broccoli, cauliflower.
Brussels sprouts are fucking amazing.
Yeah. So,
all right, guys.
So I wanted to eat those every day. That was the point.
But just to follow up on that, you think, oh, there's shit in these vegetables that's good for you. Well, think of how long it took for these vegetables to develop those chemicals. Phytonutrient is very powerful because it's been honed for a long time. So you have to take advantage of that incredible experience these plants harbor. I mean, their genetic history is vast, and you can harness it just by eating the fucking thing.
Yeah. All right, guys, we're going to have to wrap this up. We'll bring Chris Wark back again in the future, because I think we've got several shows in there.
Yeah, that went really quick.
Huh? We spent a lot of time, went really fast. Great conversation. So we're going to go around the room here, and we're going to give our plugs. I'll let Chris Wark go first. He's going to plug his website, I'm assuming.
Yeah, and I'll give the brief history is about a year and a half ago I decided I've been cancer-free for 8 years, which is not something I had said up until this point on this show. And after 7 years, I was like, you know what? I guess it's probably been long enough where I could feel comfortable sharing my story. I didn't want to put myself out there right away like, hey, I'm beating cancer naturally, after a year or something. Right. Even though I believed it would work, there was still some doubts, and I didn't want to end up looking like an idiot.
You didn't want to launch a blog about beating cancer and die of cancer.
Yeah. So, right. Oh, oops, the cancer's back. But
you wouldn't be around for it anyway, so whatever.
Yeah, it wouldn't matter. But anyway, so after 7 years of being cancer-free, I was like, you know what? I'm starting to feel compelled to share my story. So I started a blog called ChrisBeatCancer.com, and it has really kind of grown really fast because apparently, I mean, the whole point of the blog was just to share what I did and everything that I've learned about natural therapies and nutrition and how I beat cancer. And anyway, apparently a lot of people want to know that. So, just the blog gets a lot of traffic. And
so what's the website name?
It's ChrisBeatCancer.com.
ChrisBeatCancer.com.
And he won't say it because he's too modest, but check out his band, Arma Secreta. I really love those guys. ArmaSecreta.bandcamp.com. Good stuff.
Amos Creta?
Yeah, I do play guitar and sing in a band. Yes.
I guess Chris's band was like CTP's favorite local band or something.
Yeah.
And then Chris had been training at the gym, and then CTP discovered it and was like, "Oh my God!" I think you started bowing.
Dude.
We're not worthy.
It was just weird because we'd been friends, but I didn't know that he was the guy in the band that I had liked that whole time, and I was just like, "Oh, you're that guy."
It was super small world stuff. But the band's called Arma Secreta. It's Portuguese for secret weapon, right? Arma Secreta.
Awesome.
Cock reference.
That's my
What
plug.
are you plugging, Seymour?
All right, Chris Moore, what's your plug?
Well, I share some thoughts on the chrismooreblog.com. Humble listeners, go there and read some stuff.
All right, Dougie.
TechniqueWOD.com is basically just a video blog for our member base at Faction Strength and Conditioning, where we talk about basic exercise technique for any and all CrossFit exercises, weightlifting, gymnastics, and the like. TechniqueWOD.com.
Hey, you can learn good stuff there. Boy, I tell you, you want to learn how to correct your pull, go to TechniqueWOD.com.
If you want to see me learn stuff there, you can. All right, guys. I'm going to plug Fitter TV. So this is Barbell Shrugged. This is one of the shows that we're hosting there.
You want to spell Fitter TV?
I probably should. That is FITR.TV. All right, so there's no E in there, kind of like Tumblr.
Isn't it cool? Isn't that different and creative?
I don't know who came up with that.
It's pretty hip.
You did!
Oh, yeah.
Give you credit, boss, man.
I don't know.
Well, maybe you didn't.
I think it was me.
It
was Doug. Doug's the wife.
Doug,
I was like, I'm not really sure who came up with it.
Doug came up with Fitter.tv. Mike came up with Incrediblur.
Incredibler.com.
I fucking came up with Barbell Shrugged.
And Chris Moore did come with Barbell Shrug. Genius.
Yeah.
Team effort here, folks.
Yes.
Peace.
So, check out all the videos. Holla.
See you next week.